Hey guys, what's going on? Episode 17 of the Next Season podcast. If you've ever doubted yourself, if you've ever felt like you're faking it or you're a fraud or you don't belong and you're just hoping that no one finds out, I'm with you. When I was getting ready for high school baseball, trying out for the high school team, freshman year, I had all the confidence in the world. I thought I had the skills. I thought I was ready. Freshman year, I didn't make it on the varsity team. Of course, I was on the JV team and I was kind of bummed, but I wasn't really surprised. There were some seniors and even a couple juniors that were kind of in the same positions that I was trying out for. And so I kind of expected it, but I was still kind of bummed. But I knew that I was going to be ready going into my sophomore year to be able to have a spot on the varsity team. And then there was a reality check. And that sophomore year rolls around and there was a freshman behind me, a year behind me, who got the starting catcher spot that I thought was mine. And just like that, my doubt started to creep in. And that's really when I started to feel what we're going to cover in today's topic. And I started to feel that in my life. And I told myself, maybe I'm not as good as I thought. Maybe I don't belong. And that little seed of self-doubt, right? That little seed of self-doubt, it didn't just sit there, it started to grow. And I switched from catcher to outfield and I was doing some backup catching and I was doing really well. So sophomore year into junior year, in the senior year, I'm playing primarily outfield. I'm doing it really well. And it ended up allowing me to get into play Division I college. And by the time I got to college, I had full-blown imposter syndrome. No matter how much I trained, no matter what my coaches or teammates said, I felt like I was one bad game or even one bad play of being exposed as a fraud. And that feeling didn't stop when my baseball career ended. It followed me into every profession, every new challenge, every big opportunity. And the evidence was there, right? Like people saw my potential, people trusted my abilities. I had the stats, but in my head, that imposter syndrome was just dominating me. And it impacted my playing career. So it ended up, that was a big factor in me stepping away because of the pressure of all of it. And it impacted my performance because I didn't have the confidence. I had the seeds of doubt and that imposter syndrome that were driving down my performance. Fast forward to today, I've spent years coaching professionals in mental performance and leadership. I've coached baseball players just like you. I know this stuff inside and out. But when it came to starting next season and starting to put this stuff out there and putting my voice out there and putting myself out there, I froze. Like, why the hell would anyone want to listen to me? Literally every time I press record on one of these podcasts, on one of these episodes, every time I hit post on social media, it's a battle. Like I will sit here for a while and battle and have these conversations about me doubting myself. I know that this isn't a perfectly produced show. I know I don't have the algorithm figured out. My content isn't optimized for whatever that means, the way the experts say that it should be. But you know what? It's real. It's raw. It's authentic. And most importantly, I'm doing it as consistently as I can. And that's what matters because none of this is about me. None of this is about being perfect. It's about putting information out there and trying to help people like you. So if you've ever doubted yourself, if you ever feel like you don't belong, I'm with you. And everything that I'm going to talk about, all the advice and the perspectives in this episode and every episode, I'm telling myself too. So today I want to talk to you about how to break free from that imposter syndrome and start showing up the way that you were meant to. Let's get into it. Imposter syndrome. It's that voice in your head that says things like, I don't belong here. Everyone else has it figured out and I'm just getting lucky. Sooner or later, they're going to find out that I'm a fraud. If you've ever felt like this, you know it's not a good feeling. It saps the fun out of what we do. It crushes your performance, but it's not reality. It's actually a glitch in the way that your brain processes your self-worth and ultimately performance and success. And today, I want to give you some strategies to rewire that. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down what it is, why it happens, what's happening inside your brain, and most importantly, what you can do about it. So what is imposter syndrome? It is that persistent feeling of being unqualified, despite having the skills, the achievements, and perhaps even the proof that you've earned your spot. It's when you think your success is due to luck or external factors and not based upon your own abilities and your own effort and your own ambitions and your performance. The term imposter syndrome was first introduced in 1978 by psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes, who described it as an internal belief that one is not as competent as others perceive them to be. And since then, that phenomenon has popped up everywhere, all industries, all professions. And some of the most successful and respected people in their field have acknowledged it. Studies suggest that up to 80% of people experience these feelings at some point in their lives. It's important to know that the research shows that imposter syndrome isn't a sign of weakness. It's actually common among high performers. There's an element of humility to it, but it's also a very real feeling that you don't belong, because high performers are generally surrounded by other high performers. So the more that you achieve, the higher your expectations and the higher your standards, and the more you start questioning if you're good enough. Again, imposter syndrome is that feeling like you don't deserve your achievements. Like you got there by luck, not by skill. And no matter how much work you put in, you feel like you're faking it. And eventually you think people are going to find out. Let's put this in a baseball context, right? A high school player gets recruited to play Division I college, but he's singing to himself, they must have made a mistake. I'm not as good as these other guys. That was me. Okay. A pitcher in the minors gets called up and tells himself, I got lucky last season, right? I really don't belong at this level. Even an MLB All-Star is going to have those moments of self-doubt when they hit a slump or they're in a funk and they're thinking, maybe I was never that good to begin with. Like I made it here, but am I really going to be able to stay? So let's talk about why this happens, right? We're going to talk about the roots of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. There's a number of factors at play. And oftentimes people with imposter syndrome have a number of things that are going on, and they're susceptible to it for a number of reasons. One of them is perfectionism. So setting impossibly high standards for yourself so then nothing ever feels good enough, right? No effort, no statistics, or no performance ever feels like it's good enough. Many people with imposter syndrome set brutally high standards for themselves. And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge believer in high standards, but people that do this believe that anything less than perfect outcomes is failure. And this unrealistic expectation leads to chronic dissatisfaction with one's achievements. And then there's the constant feeling and fear of not measuring up. Another factor that could be at play is family dynamics. It's the environment in which we grew up. Early family experiences and upbringing do play a significant role in the development of imposter syndrome and other things as well. So things like parental expectations and comparisons. Children who grew up in environments where they're constantly compared to high achieving siblings or peers or other people, or where they face unrealistic parental expectations, may develop feelings of inadequacy. This is a hard reality. Like for me as a parent of kids and as a coach, this is hard for me. And so those children may internalize the belief that they can never live up to the standards, leading to chronic self-doubt in adulthood. Another one at play here is overprotectiveness or criticism. Overprotective parents can prevent children from developing a sense of competence and self-efficacy because everything's being done for them. While on the other side, overly critical parents can instill fear of making mistakes. And so you're not even allowing the ability to make mistakes and the ability to build resilience and learn from those mistakes. And so both of those scenarios can hinder the development of a healthy, balanced self-concept. So those are just a couple of factors at play in the family dynamics. Another factor, another root of imposter syndrome is attributing success to luck. It's believing that external factors are the real reason for your results. Like you could crush a ball, right? You could absolutely demolish a ball and just dismiss it as you got lucky, you ran into a bad pitch. Like that's not it. There's a sense of humility that's important, but you also have to have confidence in your ability to execute. A common thought pattern among people who experience imposter syndrome is that tendency to downplay or dismiss their success and their contributions. And this discounting undermines your self-confidence and reinforces the feelings of inadequacy. Another factor I want to call out here is going back to our previous episode 16, and it's all of the ants. And this is a bit of a case of the chicken and the egg, like which comes first. But people who struggle with imposter syndrome are very likely to be dealing with a whole bunch of those automatic negative thoughts that I laid out in episode 16. So it's the always and never thinking. It's focusing on the negative and discounting the positive. It's catastrophizing. It's mind reading and the spotlight effect. And guilt beatings and shaming and perfectionism. Again, we talked about perfectionism. There it is again. Labeling, personalization, and blaming. If you're dealing with any of these, you're probably dealing with imposter syndrome as well. Neuroscience tells us that all of this stems from cognitive distortions in the brain. Again, I said it's kind of like a glitch in your brain. So let's talk about the neuroscience. What's going on inside your brain, inside your mind when it comes to imposter syndrome? Your brain is wired for survival, not necessarily success. And that means you're constantly scanning for threats. You're constantly looking out for failure or rejection or anything that can knock you down. And you're figuring out how to avoid that. When you're more consistently and regularly in that state of mind, in that state of stress and alert, the sympathetic state, it's those feelings of being found out and other stressful emotions and feelings. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, activates the release of cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And elevated cortisol chronically can lead to anxiety, lead to sleep issues, and a whole bunch of other mental and physical health problems. Remember, stress is not bad. Stress is necessary, but chronically, it can be a problem. Another major player in the brain for imposter syndrome is the prefrontal cortex. And that's a brain area that's crucial for evaluating one's abilities, judging and assessing one's performance, and engaging in executive functions. So imposter syndrome may increase the activity in the prefrontal cortex, which leads to that excessive self-monitoring and more critical self-evaluation. This overdoing can result in unhealthy judgment of inadequacies and flaws, which only is going to reinforce the feeling that you don't belong or you're not worthy, even if that feeling is irrational. Imposter syndrome also impacts the brain's neurotransmitter signals, serotonin and dopamine primarily here. So low serotonin, which helps you regulate your mood, can lead to feelings of emptiness and sadness and depression and anxiety. How do you think that's going to impact your performance and your outlook, right? Dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter linked to motivation and reward and the pursuit of goals, can be reduced as well. And so that's going to diminish the satisfaction and the enjoyment from pursuing and achieving your goals. And so even when you do the work and you get the wins, which should disprove that feeling of imposter syndrome, you discount them or dismiss them entirely. Simply put, here's what's happening neurologically. Your amygdala fires up, sends stress signals. Your prefrontal cortex, which is the rational thinking part of your brain, tries to step in, but if you don't have the right mental strategies, that fear response grows. Your neurotransmitters, the serotonin and the dopamine, get skewed, so your mood and your motivation go south. And this triggers those automatic negative thoughts, and that becomes the cycle, right? The same thoughts we talked about in our last episode, which causes self-doubt and overthinking. And you're cycling now, you're spiraling. What this means, imposter syndrome is literally wiring your brain to protect you from failure by making you second guess yourself and to stop you from pursuing your goals and ambitions, to stop you from putting in your effort and taking the risk. But the key is you don't have to listen to it. Let's put this in a real world scenario for baseball, right? This is how this shows up in baseball. Imagine you're a rookie in spring training. You're surrounded by vets. Everywhere you look, there's veterans, there's all-stars, there's maybe some future Hall of Famers. And maybe we don't even think that far down the road. We don't have to go that far down. Maybe you're trying out for your high school team or your travel team. It's your first full practice when you get to college, you get to campus as a freshman. You take a couple of bad swings in BP, immediately your brain starts to fire, like, again, asking these questions. What am I doing here? These guys are on a whole nother level. I don't belong, and they probably know I don't belong. Let's break that down, those three things that we just said, right? Mind reading, you assume you know what others are thinking. Labeling, you're calling yourself a fraud. Guilt beatings and shaming, you tell yourself that you should be better instead of focusing on what you're doing to get better. Nobody's watching you as closely as you think. Remember, the spotlight effect. Your brain exaggerates how much attention people are paying to you and your mistakes. In reality, most people are too focused on their own game to worry about yours. Plus, and this is big, right? We've got the spotlight effect where we understand that most people are not talking about it. But if there are people that are talking about you, teammates, fans, peers, whoever it is, critics, if they are talking about you behind your back, they're behind you for a reason. Real winners, the ones whose opinions should matter to you, are never going to put you down. They've been there. They're there now, and they're going to lift you up. So don't give in to the opinions of people who you wouldn't trade places with. Players who beat imposter syndrome are able to learn to shift their mindset and focus on controlling what they can control. And with that being said, with all that in mind, so we understand what is imposter syndrome. We understand why it's happening. We understand what's happening in our brain. Let's talk about 5 strategies that you can use to overcome imposter syndrome. Let's get tactical here. The key to these working is understanding that your brain is designed to learn, adapt, and grow. Your brain is not fixed, it's plastic, which means that it can change based upon your experiences and how you train it. Again, this is called neuroplasticity. So just like you can improve your swing by taking quality reps in the cage, and you can slowly start to break those patterns and form new ones, you can train your brain to overcome self-doubt by practicing the right mental skills. Our brains are designed to keep learning. And remember, learning isn't just about knowing something. That's knowledge. Learning is about proving it through behavior change. Learning is demonstrating new and better behavior in the same conditions that you had before. So if you want to overcome imposter syndrome, you can't just listen to this or watch this or read about it. You have to apply these strategies in real time. So again, here are 5 ways to rewire your mind and break free from the imposter trap. The first is challenge your thoughts. It's reframing those ants. Going back to our previous episode, we talked about this. We talked about at the end, the strategies to overcome it is challenging those ants. Our brains run on patterns. If you constantly tell yourself that you're not good enough, you are going to believe it, whether that is true or not. When the imposter syndrome kicks in, stop and challenge that thought. Is this a fact or is this just a fear? What would I say to a teammate in my situation? This is about being the best teammate to yourself. What would I say to a teammate if he was in the same situation? Another question to ask, what evidence do I have that I don't belong? Okay. You're going to build the evidence. What evidence do you have that you don't belong? Let's put this in a baseball example. Say you're a freshman who made the varsity team. Okay. Awesome. You look around and think, I don't deserve this. These seniors are way better than me. Okay. Now ask yourself these questions. Did the coach just randomly pick you? No, you earned your spot. Have you put in the work? Yeah, you trained for this. Are you improving? Absolutely. And that's what matters. So instead of saying I don't belong here, reframe it to I've trained for this moment. I've earned this shot. I'm here because I put in the work, not because of luck. And I want to make this point as well. Sometimes the belief that others have in you, even if you don't see it yet, so your coach, your teammates, deserves your respect. So respect them by stepping up and proving why you're there. Your thoughts create your reality. If you change the script, your performance will follow. So again, that first one is challenge your thoughts and reframe those automatic negative thoughts. The second strategy to overcoming imposter syndrome is acknowledge your achievements objectively. Your brain is built to focus on those negatives. Again, the automatic negative thoughts, that's the default. That's part of survival. But when you constantly focus on what you haven't done, you overlook all of the proof that you actually belong. And that's why writing down your wins can be a game changer. So I challenge you to start keeping a wins journal where you write down a skill that you improved, a moment that you showed resilience, a time that you overcame doubt and succeeded, or even just showed up in the face of fear. Like sometimes for me, just recording an episode or just doing a post is a time that I overcame doubt. And regardless of how that post or podcast or episode performed, I did it. I showed up, and that's good enough. Take the emotion out of it. This isn't about bragging. It's about building confidence with facts. Consistency and courage builds confidence. That's the evidence over and over and over, and your brain needs that proof. So give it some. The third strategy to overcome imposter syndrome is to shift from perfection to progress. If you have imposter syndrome, you're probably expecting perfection. Baseball is a game of failure. Even the best hitters in the world fail 70% of the time. And I know you've heard that a million times. It's not a new concept. It's not a novel concept, but think about it. In just about every other profession, you'd have lost your job a long time ago. And that's why baseball is so humbling and so hard. 300 is considered damn near elite. Let that sink in. Failure is literally built into this sport. I actually just read a quote from Stephen Kwan, and he said, people just think that you accept failure 7 times, but you don't. When you're living your dream, you want to succeed as much as possible. And 7 times out of 10 is a lot of failure. What he's saying is he understands that failing 7 out of 10 times is great, but even when you understand that's the standard, that's kind of what's expected, you still don't feel like it's good enough. So even the best players in the world are still dealing with these feelings of imposter syndrome. If you keep expecting yourself to be flawless, to be perfect, you're setting yourself up for constant disappointment. Instead, I need you to focus on progress over perfection. So instead of saying, I have to dominate today, say, I'm going to execute this one at bat, this one pitch, this one play, this one inning. Instead of saying, I suck because I struck out, what can I learn from that at bat? Instead of, I need to be perfect, I need to get better today. I need to be perfect in my effort. Perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. So far, we have challenging your thoughts, right? Reframing those ants, acknowledge your achievements objectively, shifting from perfection to progress. The fourth strategy is stop comparing yourself to other people. Comparison is a fast track to fueling imposter syndrome. It's easy to look at other players and think they're better than me. They're more advanced than me. I'm never going to be that good. But the truth is there's always going to be somebody ahead of you. If you're a freshman, there's going to be a junior or senior who's stronger or more experienced. If you're in the minors, there's an all-star that's already in the show. So what? Their journey has nothing to do with yours. Instead of measuring yourself against other people, compare yourself to your past self. There's the you from the past, or there's you today, and there's you from where you want to be, the ideal self. And that gap, that delta is where you need to focus your effort. Are you getting better in that space? Are you better than you were last season? Are you better today than you were yesterday? Did you handle your adversity better this time? Are you developing in the player and the person you want to be? If the answer to those questions are yes, you're winning. Your journey is yours alone. Own it. The fifth strategy to overcoming imposter syndrome, I think, in my mind, is one of the biggest. And it's normalizing the feeling. Even the best players in the world deal with it. The late Tom Seaver, one of the greatest pitchers of all time, admitted that early in his career, he didn't feel like he belonged in the big leagues, but he showed up anyway. Just a couple other players that I was able to come across who have spoken openly about this. Clay Holmes was quoted in an MLB.com article saying that he wrestled with this question of, do I belong? Jose Altuve has spoken about how he questioned his potential and his ability to make it to the show and ultimately to stay there, largely because of his size and his background. And I do think it's important to acknowledge that imposter syndrome and the negative feelings can lead some people to do anything, including cheating, to help them overcome, to help them beat that imposter syndrome. It gets so strong that they'll do whatever it takes to overcome it. And I've never talked to Altuve, and even if I did, there would be a confidential part of the conversation. But I can reasonably assume that that feeling of imposter syndrome could have been a factor in his decision-making. Okay, I'm just going to put that out there. Okay, but nonetheless, he still puts in the work. He still executes and he still performs in the face of the imposter syndrome. Another one is A-Rod, another all-time great, Alex Rodriguez, who was embroiled in allegations and ultimately suspended. And he's revealed that despite his success as an athlete and his confidence, he routinely questions his place among elite company. And this is more so for him related to his business and his investments. And he's worth, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars. And when he's talking about investments, he's saying, what the hell am I doing in this room? I hope they don't kick me out. This is A-Rod. Going back to Stephen Kwan, he recalled that when he was in college, he had to relearn his swing. So he went into college and simultaneously he was addressing his confidence. He was addressing his mental game and he's addressing imposter syndrome. What he said was, the big thing was the mental game. I just did not believe in myself. I was unbelievably insecure. I had huge imposter syndrome. I just didn't think I belonged there at all. We had all these high recruits and I didn't feel like I belonged. He went on to say that it was taking action, consistent mental work using neuroplasticity, and that made the difference. What he said was, it was talking to a sports psychologist, diving into the mental game of meditation, visualization, affirmations, all those kinds of things. That's the work that it takes. This is from a pro. This is from an MLB All-Star. Meditation, visualization, affirmations, working on the mental game. And these are just a few examples. I can guarantee you, you go into a locker room and 20 of the 26 guys are going to tell you that they felt imposter syndrome. And the other 6 guys are probably lying. The same is true in every profession. Look into it. Watch the clips. Okay. Everybody deals with this. The difference between guys who succeed and the guys who don't isn't that they never feel like imposters. It's that they don't let it stop them. Remember, if you feel like an imposter, it means you're pushing your limits. It means you're stretching yourself. There's no growth in the comfort zone. If you feel nervous, it means you care. If you feel doubt, it means you're stepping into something bigger than yourself. So instead of thinking, I don't belong, say, I feel this way because I'm growing. This means I'm in the right place. And every player that I admire has felt this too. So you're normalizing it. When you change your self-talk, you create a mental environment where you can find peace and you can just play. Imposter syndrome isn't a sign that you don't belong. Remember, it's just a mental glitch. It's not the truth. You have the power to rewire it. So to summarize the 5 strategies again, you're going to challenge your thoughts. You're going to acknowledge achievements objectively and write down your wins. You're going to focus on progress, not perfection. You're going to stop comparing yourself to others, and you're going to normalize the feeling. I can personally tell you that these work because these are the things that I'm doing every day. So the next time that doubt creeps in, you put in the work, you've earned your spot, you belong there. Now go prove it. If you're liking these episodes, if you're enjoying these episodes, getting value from them, let me know. Drop a like, leave a comment, share it with someone who you think can use it too. And if you're feeling really generous, please leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. Your support means so much, and it's going to help me make these even better. It's going to help me get better guests and experts. It's not lost on me that you're spending part of your day listening to me or watching this, and your time is your most valuable asset. So I want to make sure I'm making the best use of it for you. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.